because the fact that everybody is so quick to label these children with some kind of deficit or disorder, ADHD, HDHD, LMNOP, JKEED.
At first, I was trying to be like, okay, like it's nap time. We have to be quiet. Like we have to walk. We've started singing songs, walking down the hallway, like we're whispering.
Simple as a balanced meal. So even as we talk about the conversation of, kids going wild and behavior issues, it goes.
I feel like they kind of just give the kid a slap on the wrist instead of actually trying to sit down and communicate with the kid. Like, hey, we can't.
Teachers who go in and spend the day and spend time with those children, which in turn gives the children, they're specially trained for this, so it gives the children more of what they need. But
they long, so you should know how those babies act and ask them, like, are you okay? Like, do we need to go sit down? Do we need to go sit?
Hey, my friends, this is me, Coach Stacey B, here with another episode of the Childcare Teachers Chronicles Podcast, the #1 podcast specifically for childcare teachers. I have a special guest here with me on today, and we're going to talk about a hot topic in these streets. Yeah, we're going to talk about y'all kids, them kids in them. I have Miss Julie Vessels. She has been in early... Matter of fact, let me not tell her story. Julie, tell the people who you are and why you are the perfect person to sit on the couch for today.
Hi, my name is Julie Vessels. I've been working with kids for almost 4 years now. I work from the ages of 6 weeks all the way to high school, SPED students at one point. So
you have a huge gap of kids you've been working with.
Yes.
You need mental health days.
I definitely have had to take those days.
Okay, so that's actually getting into a more serious topic that we're going to talk about with today's topic. We are talking about kids going wild. Are behavior issues getting worse, or are we just over it?
I feel like it really depends. Like, I feel like most teachers really are getting where they're just stressed and they're tired. They can't handle it. But also, this generation is crazy. Do not get me wrong. Like, I think from when I grew up, my parents locked me outside. Like,
don't come back in here until I open the door.
I got locked outside, and these kids, they're inside. They're on their electronics, watching TV, playing on their iPads. They're not going outside these days, really.
Right.
They're staying in.
I think our topic really calls for the pause to have a thought process to that, right? Are kids getting worse, or are teachers just over it, right? We can easily say, oh, these children bad, they this, they that, but could the teacher be more stressed out, and that makes it seem like the children are more unbearable?
Oh, yeah, there's definitely teachers that are, you could tell they're just done, they're tired, and honestly, if you feel like that, then please just leave, like, respectfully.
Right, leave our industry.
Leave, because you're going to bring down everyone, not just the teachers, not just you, but you're going to bring down those kids with you. And that's what you really have to think about is those kids. And yes, they could be a handful, but as long as you have a supportive team, you can work through it and work together and figure out a solution no matter what.
So speaking of a handful, I'm so glad you brought that up, because my question is increased aggression and defiance in young children, right? Are kids actually more aggressive today, or are teachers just less tolerant?
Like I said before, it really depends on that child. I feel like parents these days really ain't going to get their kids tested, or if they're not wanting to, they're scared. I've heard the excuse of like, well, if they have something, then that's on me. No.
They look at it as a reflection of the parent.
Yeah, and it's not on you. Things just happen, and you have to navigate around it. And it's not on you, and it's not on the kid. Just figure it out. Work and, like, just try to figure out a solution no matter what. That's what it all comes down to.
So you say you've been in early education for about 4 years now. How do behavior issues differ from now to 4 years ago? Have you noticed a difference?
I think I have seen different kids like get where it's progressing to where it's getting worse, but also there's other kids where they don't care. They're going to be their little happy selves. So it depends on the kid, and it depends on what's happening at home. The home
Key part.
is what happens.
That part, the home. Let me tell you, this reminds me of a conversation I had. A good friend of mine, Melissa Fort. We met in Germany. We were both working at a child care center in Germany. She went on to direct a few centers. She now actually works for the United States Air Force as like the compliance person. She flies to, I'm so jealous of her job. She flies to all these different bases and all these different countries and areas, and she does compliance at the child care centers. And one day we were on the phone and we were having a conversation about the children, right? And this is just my opinion. Be pissed with Coach Stacey B if you want, but children nowadays are far different than they once were. And I could break it down on a multitude of levels. But one thing that me and my friend was talking about was the fact that everybody is so quick to label these children with some kind of deficit or disorder, ADHD, HDHD, LMNOP, JKEED, whatever, not to be make fun of those who actually have an acronym, but there's always someone trying to label these children with something. And we talked about how when we were their age, we was outside. We played outside. We played with other kids. We rolled out. But like you said, you got locked outside. I remember, don't come back home till the light come on, right? Parents didn't want us inside sucking up their air, using their light, watching their TV. Nowadays, even from as young as before they're 1 year old, children constantly have some type of tablet or device in their face, right? We are constantly trying to make the children sit still, listen, don't move. And it doesn't give them that freedom of movement, right? That freedom of being free. And so I think that is one of the reasons why children act out so much, because children naturally has to move around and exert a lot of that energy they have. And when we are restricting them of doing so, sit down, don't talk, walk in a straight line, hand on your pockets, hand on the person in front of you, then where do they have the opportunity to exert all the energy that's rolling through them?
Yes, that's why we need to take them outside during circle time, during your small group. Have things that are getting up and moving. Like, we have our songs and we sit there and dance to them. Even when we're walking down the hallway. At first, I was trying to be like, okay, it's nap time. We have to be quiet. Like, we have to walk. We've started singing songs walking down the hallway. Like, we're whispering. I'm like, okay, we have to whisper. And we're singing our songs. And that's what's been getting them to stay in that line and walk quietly to the cafeteria to eat during the nap.
Giving them something to do instead of trying to keep them so restricted. Yes. So I think it's kind of what we said before. Yes, kids are actually more aggressive today, but teachers are less tolerant. And there has been a difference in behavior, even as far back as I could think, there has been a difference. I feel like children nowadays are weaker than children when we were younger. And I say that because, I played all kinds of sports. And although there were people with like broken bones, I feel like now something is always wrong with the children. My toe hurt, my finger hurt, my elbow hurt. And I think it's because, even now we pour them into so much, hot Takis and fast food and things like that. Back in our days, we had to sit down and eat a meal with a green vegetable and stuff,
and you had
right?
to eat the whole thing.
And you had to eat the whole thing. And I think even that even the food that the children eat these days plays into their behavior disorder, their aggression, and in turns affects the teachers in the early learner centers.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Like, my nephew, all he eats is McDonald's. And that child, I love him, but he drives me crazy.
It's something to be said when they're missing out on something as simple as a balanced meal. So even as we talk about the conversation of, kids going wild and behavior issues, it goes as deep down as the foods that they're eating as well. So let me see. Do you think screen time and social media are impacting younger children?
Oh, most definitely. It could be positive or negative. Because, if you take Miss Rachel, she's teaching them sign language and doing all this. But also, I don't know if you ever heard the conspiracy of do not let your kids watch CoComelon. Because it's teaching them just to babble and act like a baby. When you want them to advance instead of being held back. And I've seen that. Kids that watch CoComelon versus kids that watch Miss Rachel. You could see the difference of where they are.
Because Miss Rachel is actually teaching, and CoComelon just have a bunch of babbling.
Yeah, and just the songs. Miss Rachel sitting there trying to get them
Well, and that's because the kids' brains are so absorbent at this age. You
Yes,
know,
and
whatever we put down, we pick up, which is why we talk about teachers about, their communication and their tone and even their facial expressions. However we show up in the room, that's exactly what the children absorb. So that's a great point that you put out there. So let me ask, lack of parental discipline and accountability, right? Are parents less involved in discipline than before?
I definitely feel like they are. Most parents these days, I feel like they kind of just give the kid a slap on the wrist instead of actually trying to sit down and communicate with the kid. Like, hey, we can't do that. That's not acceptable. They're just kind of like, oh, they're a kid. They're gonna figure it out. They're playing.
Never
No.
mind it.
Try to redirect them, because if you don't at this age, then they're not gonna learn.
Right. And so then you have the incident where you're out in the grocery store and the kid is doing something that they're not supposed to do, and someone else says something, and then they have an attitude with the other person, right? Because they were not taught at a young age right from wrong, as opposed to saying, oh, you're just a kid, it's okay. Teaching them then from right from wrong. I think that's a great example that you gave. How do you handle it when parents dismiss behavior issues or blame the teacher?
If it's kind of getting to the point where I can't handle it no more, I'm gonna go to one of my supervisors and be like, hey, I've tried to discuss with this parent. I've tried to sit down with parents before, and they refuse to answer my texts, but they'll answer everything else. And I'm like, okay, well, at this point, if you're not going to answer me or answer my boss, then I'm going to communicate with you, but it's going to be the very bare minimum at that point, because I'm trying to get you to help your kid, because it can't just be on me. It's your child, too. When they're in my care, yeah, that's my baby. You ain't, no. But at home, it starts there. You have to help it.
So how do you think teachers can get on one accord with parents when they don't? When some parents, not all, so parents don't come up under my podcast don't talk about me. If the shoe don't fit, then don't wear it, okay? But how do you think teachers could get on one accord with parents when some parents just don't want to see that there is an actual problem with the child?
At that point, it really depends on the parent. Some parents you can finally get through to and be like, hey, it's nothing bad. Like, things happen. But let's try to sit down and work together. And like I said, go to your bosses. Go talk to whoever's ahead. Or sit down and have a one-on-one conversation and explain why, and be like, we could keep an eye on it here, but I need you to keep an eye on it at home as well, so we can work together and figure out a solution.
Well, let me add to that. And this is one thing that I often tell my teachers and even my leadership team when they're having struggles with a child or they're having issues with, anything in the sentence. If it's not written, it's not real. We often have times where you have children who act out or children who bite all the time, and then someone come and say, oh, he need to get sent home because he been biting for the last few weeks.
But there's no evidence.
There's no evidence of it. There's no plan of action. There's no communication to the parents. So even with what you're saying, speaking to your director and speaking to your boss for help, always make sure, I've talked before, and this is something I talk about in the Childcare Teacher Chronicles planner that I have. Anecdotal notes are so important when you're trying to document behavior or educational things with children, making sure that there is a written record of it. And that helps save you when it comes down to it. Because my next question is, have you ever had to tell a parent their child's behavior is affecting the whole class?
Oh, most certainly. And it's not an easy conversation ever. And especially when the parent's like, oh, no, my baby would never do that. Even if you have a whole binder full, there's parents that are still going to be like, oh, no. But yeah, it's not easy. And I had to do it more than once. Like I said, I've been with multiple different ages. So it's just, at that point, you have to kind of take into consideration of, I need to protect these other ones. And that's my main thing, is protecting everyone.
So has it ever come to a point to where you all had to discontinue care for a child?
Yes.
Okay. Because I find that as I coach with a lot of teachers and I speak with them in our Beyond the Bell program, I find that a lot of teachers say that they don't feel the support from their directors. And that's one thing that we're constantly working out and mapping out, because they see things that isn't right or they see things that's a problem. And if they bring it to their director, they don't feel that support from their director. So you say you have been involved with organizations who will actually, if need be, dismiss a child from care, right?
Yes, the center right now that I am at, they helped me instantly.
Mm-hmm.
And at my last center, the parents kind of had to pull the kids because they would get tired of getting phone calls like, hey, come pick up your kids. Because at that center, the directors were not going to do nothing about it. It came down to me getting chased with scissors before, and they did not care.
Chased with scissors?
Yeah, I had a little girl chase me around my classroom with scissors, and her brother would choke other kids, and it was just, yeah. It was awful. I was done.
So what you did when she was chasing you with scissors?
I tried to grab them from her, and then she would like try to stab me, and I'd have to move myself, and then it was just a whole mess. Like, I would be calling for help, and no one would come. It was at the point where I'm screaming down the hallway like, I need help.
And so, and see, what bothers me with that is because you seem to be a teacher who's dedicated to this career field, and all you needed was extra support, right?
Yes.
And so, and that kind of goes back to what I say. Some people feel that they are in centers where the directors or the owners care more about maintaining that child and maintaining that seat as opposed to what's best for their teachers. And I say this all the time in my centers, like, if you all are documenting and we are following our protocols, if we need to disenroll the child, let's disenroll, because I'm not going to lose a good teacher to keep one problem child.
Yeah, and that's what Miss Teresa had said whenever I had an incident at Babes and Tots. She told me, she's like, it's coming down to where I'm going to lose a good teacher over keeping money. And we could get rid of the money. We could always replace that money. And not to say that we're going to replace your kids, like your kids are replaceable. But at that point, they ain't going to lose their teacher over that one little child.
Absolutely, because you lose a teacher, that's someone who's possibly not there for 4 kids, 5 kids, 11 kids, 15 kids, as opposed to one child. When a lot of times, the behavior issues do not subside.
Yes, exactly.
So kids going wild. Let's talk about overdiagnosing or underdiagnosing behavior issues. Do you feel as an early learning teacher, it is your responsibility to diagnose behavior issues?
No, it's my job to kind of bring up to parents like, hey, I see this. And if I've seen that before, like I worked with the sped, so I've noticed tics. So I'm like, hey, have y'all ever went and seen the doctors about this and everything else? And most of the time the parents will go and talk to someone and they'll come back and be, okay, this is what we've learned. And you have to have that bond.
So let me ask you this. What makes you qualified or expert to have that conversation with a parent?
I want the best for the kids. That's all I ever want. And I don't tell the parents, I'm like, hey, your kid has ADD or anything like that. I'm like, hey, I've noticed some things. Or like there's been times parents are like, oh yeah, we didn't tell you, but they have this. I'm like, okay, so that does explain it. Like, if you don't work with me, I can't take care of your baby the way they need to be taken care of.
So now that you bring that up, that is a problem that we find in early learning centers. Parents have a child with a disability or just some type of exceptionality, and they don't tell the center until they're in the center and you're having all these problems with the children. Then the parent is like, oh yeah, by the way, what do you say to parents like that who can't come up and have the honest conversation about what's going on with their children?
I just will be like, if I don't know this, I cannot help your child.
Right.
I cannot give them the care that they need.
Or support you as a parent.
Exactly. Like, it's hard for me. I can't do it if you don't tell me.
And I think that comes from, at times, parents feel like their child, may be cast to the side or labeled, and so they try to keep it hidden. But when you get the children in and they start acting out or these things start revealing themselves, you have no choice as a center but to address it with the parent.
Yes.
So let me ask you, do you think we are too quick to label kids with disorder like ADHD when they just need structure?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I've seen teachers do that. And like you said, they just need structure. They need you to be there. They need you to sit down. They need you to work with them, because if you work with them, then you're going to break that habit that they have.
So it means taking a little bit more time, right?
Yeah, most definitely. Like, if it means sitting down, talking, and just being like, does your heart hurt? Like, does your feelings get hurt? And just kind of helping them express it.
Well, let me ask, because children have different ways of expressing themselves, how do you track and keep up with if a child may need to be referred to a special service?
I keep an eye on all my babies. Like, I sit there and watch them all. I've learned their tics, and like, one of my kids will tell you if something happens at home. The other ones, I look for marks on them. Like, trying to make sure, and I'm watching how they're acting that next day, and just seeing how they're going about their day. If they're off, and how long is that acting
Right.
up?
Well, and that's a part of that daily observation. And what I was really looking for to hear you talk about is more like observing and documenting with those children. You know, a lot of times when we have certain things that we need to speak with parents and families about, we are able to do so. Like I kind of talked a little bit before about antidotal notes, having that written documentation.
Yes,
You know,
I always will text the parents. I'm like, hey, this kid so and so is seeming a little off today, or they're acting out a little more today. Like, is there anything going on? Is there anything I could try that maybe y'all do at home that I could do here?
Excuse me.
No, you're good. Your nails are so pretty.
Are teachers getting the training they need to handle different issues with children in the classroom when it comes to behavior disorder?
I feel like we need more. Like we said earlier, they definitely are coming in with more behavioral issues, it seems. And if we have that training, then we'll be able to handle it. But if we don't, then it makes it 10 times harder on us, and it makes us more stressed.
I feel like that's one of that great debate questions, right? Because one of the problems is our teachers in early learning centers are not equipped to deal with the children who have these different exceptionalities and disorders, correct?
Yes.
I think that we could provide more training for teachers, but it also takes away from the attention and time span spent in the classroom. These children require more attention. They require more of the teacher. And so, and that's one of the big problems right now. If you have a classroom full of 7 children or 11 children and 3 of them have, you know, some type of behavior issue, it is hard for the teachers to gather and gain control. So do you think it's fair that teachers work in the classrooms with children with these behavior issues and disorders? So is it fair for the other children in the class?
As long as you have it under control, then yes. But if it's, like I said, if it comes to where it's out of hand, where you can't get control no more, and no one's there to help you, then no, it's not fair. Because then you're taking away from all these other kids their learning possibilities. And thankfully, yes, that's what small group is for. Like, you can sit down and work on these small individual things with each child. But if you don't have the time, then you cannot do that. And it makes the whole thing fall down.
It does. It absolutely does. And so what I find now, because there's such a stigma and an eyesight on childcare, even in my centers now, if there's a new policy in our regulations that we can't just dismiss care with the child. Like, we have to have a plan of action in place before we dismiss care with the child, which I don't particularly agree with. I mean, I'm a private owned center. I run my own business. If I need to dismiss a family and I feel I need to dismiss a family, I should be able to do so, right? But so let me ask you, lack of consequences in the school system, has discipline policies become too lenient, making it harder for teachers to maintain order?
I feel like with the behavioral stuff coming more of a thing, there are a lot of things that they dismiss. And they'll keep dismissing it until it becomes a bigger problem. And it should not get to that point where it's such a big problem that it's an emergency. Like, your kid has to go. Like, no more.
Why do you think it's so easy for them to dismiss it, though?
I think it really depends on the center and the directors. Because if they don't care about the kids, then they ain't going to care. If they're there for the money, they're just going to be there for the money. If you're there for the kids, it destroys you. And you're going to fight and try to work everything out. But at points, it just gets to where you can't. And it becomes, what am I trying to think of? It becomes an issue for the daycare. Like, we could get in trouble by state because we have this one child doing all of this. So you have to weigh your pros and cons and choose from there.
I'll tell you a real life story that happened at one of my childcare centers. And I think this is one of the reasons why I do so well with teachers and in this industry, because I can have those honest truth conversations, right? And so we had child get away from us one time. The teacher was going inside with her class. She had everybody lined up. One child took off running from the line, which is a child who, received services at the center. The teacher went to get that child to bring him back in the line, got him in line, got everybody inside. But what she didn't know was when she went to get that child, another child took out, right? And so there was a child left on the playground for, a time frame. And so of course, when we realized it, they got the child inside. We self-reported, did a report, we called the parent. And you know what the dad did? He laughed and said he finally got away from y'all too. How he do that to us all the time.
No,
like he thought it was the funniest thing ever, and I don't think he realized how serious that is in the early learning centers.
Yeah.
Like that child could have seriously gotten hurt or could have gotten out of the play yard.
Yes.
Anything could have happened to that child. But that goes back to speak on when we have multiple issues in a classroom, are the teachers really equipped to handle it,
I feel like if it's just one teacher, no, you really need someone else. It's hard when it's just you. And I will say that from experience. I've been in a center where I had 40 kids to myself.
Huh?
I had 40 kids to myself with one center before, and I could not handle it.
Right.
Yeah, it
was out of ratio, B.
Oh, I know. I was way out of ratio, but they did not care. And it was because of how those kids acted. The second I left the room, they tormented anyone else that was in that room. I was the only one that could get them under control. Even to this day, I have a friend there that still works there, and she tells me, she's like, nope. Those babies are not doing nothing that they're supposed to.
That's crazy. 40 to yourself. That's crazy. So let me ask, have you ever been in a situation where you felt powerless to redirect or discipline a child?
To redirect them, yeah, I definitely have. Because at that, like I said, if you're by yourself, you can't leave those other ones. I can't leave all these other babies by themselves and sit down with this one. Because then I'm losing that time with these kids. And it just... it just crumbles completely.
So do you think centers should be able to implement a more structured discipline policy?
I think it definitely, if something's going on that big, then they need to be able to have a time where they can pull out into, a different room, like a behavior, like a calm down room with, a director or a floater, because we all usually have floaters, and if that floater's not busy, take that kid, calm down, walk them, do something to help them get where they're ready to come back into the classroom.
So that leads me to my next question. Overworked teachers and burnout, losing patience. Are teachers just too drained to deal with difficult behaviors?
I feel like on certain days, yeah. It's getting to the point where it's too much. That money, that's all everyone cares about. So, yeah, you're not getting that support and you're just tired. You're done. You can't help it no more.
So back to when you said you had the classroom by yourself with 40 children, how does lack of support from administrator impacts a teacher's ability to handle the behavior issues?
I was tired. I was done by, honestly, 5 months. I started looking for another job.
Really?
Because I could not handle it no more. I was tired. Don't get me wrong. I still miss those babies and I love them.
Because it's not their fault.
No,
it's not their fault.
It's not their fault. It's the adults' fault, and that's the sad part. I just couldn't do it no more. I left, found somewhere else, and I'm better off where I am.
So I was going to ask, have you seen a great teacher ever quit because of behavior management issues? Or were you that great teacher who quit that last job?
I still get told that I was a really good teacher over there, but I definitely have seen another teacher leave that area because she was not getting the support for one of these kids that she had in her 3-year-old room. And it hurt me to see her leave because I was like, what in the world? But she kept calling and calling for help, and no one came, and she grabbed herself and said, someone needs to come in here because I'm going.
So let me tell you, one thing I find is really hard when we're dealing with kids going wild and their behavior issues is when, like we said a little earlier, the parents either don't admit to it or ignore the behavior issues, right? So let's talk about parents' unrealistic expectations of teachers, right? Because I feel like we find that often that parents have an unrealistic expectation of the teachers. Have you ever had a parent say that doesn't happen at home when you report the issue?
Yeah, most definitely.
They be lying. They be lying.
Or sometimes it is true, like with the potty, and they're like, oh, well, they do this at home. Yeah, kids are going to do certain things at home versus here because they want that reaction. They want to get it from you. Don't give that kid that reaction.
That's a...
It's been a long one.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good.
That's a very true point, though. They are definitely looking for a reaction. And sometimes, whether good or bad, they need the reaction.
Yes.
So how does lack of support from the administrator, how do you handle a parent who expects teachers to raise their child instead of just educating them?
At that point, you kind of have to communicate with those parents like, hey, like I said, we have to work together. They're with me most of the day, and they go home with you, eat dinner maybe, go to sleep. You're not really spending time with your kids.
Right.
Which is a whole different discussion.
Right.
On its own. But you kind of just have to sit there and explain to the parents like, hey, I need you to do this. Because if you do not do it at home, then they're not going to get anywhere. It's just a long conversation with those parents.
Well, and making it a safe space where you can have those conversations with parents. A lot of times parents don't open up and talk to teachers or listeners because they feel like they may be judged. They feel like, they may know that they're not doing their best. They're too drained and tired. And like I tell our teachers, a lot of times we spend 8 to 10 hours a day with these children. We have to be, a few of my locations is called It Takes a Village Academy, and that's because I really believe it takes a village. And one thing I have learned with working with the military families is we have to be there just as much for the parents as we do the children.
Absolutely.
We could spend 8 and 10 hours a day with a child, and if they're going home every day to a messed up environment, it's like we're starting back over everything.
I would, if I see the parents, I usually ask them, like, how are you? Like, what's everything that's going on with you? And they will tell me. Because that bond with them is just as important as it is with those kids. You have to have it.
And another thing, having that open line of communication, it lets us in on a little insight of that home life, right? So we're going to talk a little bit about the role of trauma and home life in children's behaviors, right? Are behavior issues actually worse, or are kids dealing with more trauma and stress than before?
I think some kids are dealing with trauma, and it hurts me when I find out about things that are happening at home, because there is nothing at that point that you can do. You can't go to their home. You can't keep them with you all day. You can't take them home with you. They have to go home. You can report it, but that only gets you so far.
Right.
That becomes when it's up to state on that situation.
A lot of the children nowadays are forced to grow up, a lot quicker than we had to, back in the days. So there are children who are dealing with trauma and stress in the home. And most times they don't know how to communicate it. They don't know how to feel about it,
And then they're having all this rage built up inside of them.
Right.
And bringing it to school and hitting, screaming, crying, throwing things, using the restroom on themselves. Like, they start going downhill when stuff is happening at home.
That actually brings me to my next question. Have you ever had a child act out later to find it was because of a issue at home?
Oh, yeah. And it hurt me when I found out about that, because I was like, oh, multiple times, actually. And like I said, I just want to help them, but if it's at home, I can't do nothing. I can't go to their home. I'm not allowed to.
So what have you learned in that situation when kids are acting out and apparently there was something that happened at home that caused it? What have you learned to be mindful of or on top of, to be aware of?
Kind of just watch their behavior. You're with those kids all day long, so you should know how those babies act. And ask them, like, are you okay? Like, do we need to go sit down? Do we need to go sit over here and just have our time? Like, do you need a space away from everyone? No one mess with you. Do you want to play by yourself? Give them options. Do you want to be with me today? Do you just want to sit by me? Give them that.
And I like the fact that you say give them an option, because most time we feel like, oh, he need a hug, or she needs to be close to me, or she just want. Sometimes they don't want anything to do with you. They want space for themselves.
My kids to hug me. I absolutely. Ask them. I'm like, do you want a hug?
Absolutely.
Because if they don't, then I'm like, okay, I respect it. Do you need anything else? Okay.
And so, this kind of actually feeds into the next question. How can childcare centers better support children dealing with emotional and behavior challenges?
Like I said, give them the options. Be there for them. Give them the hugs. Give them any type of support that they need, whether it's emotional, physical. If they want to punch something, give them a pillow.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, it's okay to punch this, but please do not punch your friend.
Mm-hmm.
Do not punch anything else. Just punch the pillow. Like, that's why we have our little safe places, which are for them to calm down. Give them stuff to draw. Let that kid draw. See what they draw.
Yeah.
And if it's something that you need to report, then you take that picture of that, report it. But it's all there.
But even still, like, let them draw and then have that conversation. What did you draw? And have them describe it. Because sometimes children just need a space to download as well.
Yes.
And all of that is important in teaching them how to be emotionally regulated adults. It starts from young, giving them the space to communicate and feel how they feel, but kind of guiding them in doing so. So in talking about guiding them, lack of qualified staff for behavior management, do you feel that early learning centers are qualified to teach classrooms with behavior management children?
If it's a classroom full of them, I do not. I think that we need that special training. And they have those classes. If you could get into one of those classes and get that training, then great. Please do. Please get that training so you can have these babies. But if you don't, and do not put a whole room full of them there, because then you are not qualified. You're not going to be able to help those babies.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so have you ever needed outside help for a child's behavior that you could not get support with?
At my last center, the one that traced me scissors, it took me a while to even get anyone to help me at all with that.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Why do you think that was so?
That whole... I don't got nothing nice to say about that place.
Okay, well, we're going to leave that alone. We're going to leave that alone. So, again, how do centers handle challenging behaviors when there's no resources or additional support? How do you think, centers can handle the challenging behaviors with just what they have on staff or on site?
Communication.
Communication.
Work together. If you do not work together, you're not going to get anywhere.
Do you think behavior issues get worse with age?
If you don't stop it while it's young, it will progress. That's why you have to get it right when you start noticing it, or it's just going to get worse and worse and worse.
Okay, so you would say you have seen children with extreme behavior issues get worse over time if there was no one there to work with them and direct them in that.
I've seen kids get worse until they finally get to someone where it's, no, you just hit that roadblock. You ain't getting nowhere else. Like, you're gonna work on this.
So do you think early intervention is actually effective?
Oh, yes. It is. Like, and as long as it's getting worked on even after they leave your care, then it's gonna work. But if you stop halfway through it, and then it's just...
Because some people look at it just like a Band-Aid on it.
No, I don't think so. I think if you work on it constantly at home, that's what I'm always going to say. Everything leads back to home. Work on it at home. Work at the center. Because if you don't, then they're going to fall back downhill. But if you work on it at home, work on it at the center, and even once they move up out of your class into the other classes, have that teacher work on it with them still, then it's going to slowly help it.
So let me ask you, if a child starts the school year with major behavior issues, what would be their long-term outcome, you think?
If it's in a center, as long as they can help it and get it fixed right away, then it's going to get better. But it depends on that teacher. It depends on the center. And it depends on the kid. If that kid don't want to work with it, then it's a no-go at that point.
Yeah, I think long-term outcome, as you say, really depends on the support that's around for that child. And then who's willing to do it. Because, again, you have a lot of teachers say, I don't get paid enough for this ish. Like, I really don't. It's not my job to come in and regulate with these extreme behavior children, right?
Yes.
So I think it's a collective effort to make sure that all components are put together in the proper time and the proper place so that they can reduce these long-term behavior issues with children.
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Absolutely. So let me ask you, should teachers be given hazardous pay for dealing with children with behavior challenges?
It really depends. Like we talked about, if it's a classroom full of them, then yes. Because there is a high chance that you're going home with cuts, bruises, anything. And But if it's only one or two, no.
When you said the little girl chased you with scissors, aside from that, have you ever been physically harmed by a child?
Yeah, multiple
Uh-oh.
times.
Multiple times.
Yeah. But, like, it's not... I tried to just work with kids. I tried to get over it.
Mm-hmm.
If I can't fix... I sat there and cried with one kid because I couldn't deal with it anymore. I tried to work, but parents weren't working, and at that point, I just sat there and cried.
So let me ask, do you think centers should pay teachers more pay for classrooms with high behavior issues?
I don't think so. I think it really depends on the teacher, because at that point, a person's just going to try to get in that room because, oh, that has better pay, but they ain't going to care about those kids.
Mm-hmm.
You have to care about the kids.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I actually know some centers that they charge families more if they have to do more work. You know, even certain centers, they have like potty training fees and things like that. So there are people who look to compensate more, you know, more compensation, which I hope in turn goes to the teacher who has to deal with all that.
I hope so.
So let me ask, will better pay makes teachers more patient and willing to stay in challenging classrooms?
No.
No.
I mean, if they're there for the money, then maybe, but they're going to get drained out fast.
Mm-hmm.
You have to be there for the kids, not for the money. You're there for those babies.
Mm-hmm.
And so, no, I don't think money is going to help you. Because if that was the issue, and then that teacher that is good with the kids, then they're going to stay there because, but no.
So when we talk about kids going wild, behavior issues, are they getting worse, or are teachers just over it? Give me a projection. In the next 5 years, whether you feel you're going to be in early education with the behaviors that's going on now.
I hope that I've learned to work with it better and to figure out how to address it faster. Because right now, it's still hard. I'm still early in this. But I hope within that time frame, I'm able to get to it quicker and I understand more, and I can convince these parents, like, hey, please work with me. And hopefully parents these days are going to see, like, oh, I do see a difference. And that is kind of hard. So let me try to help out my teachers by helping out my kiddo.
So let me ask you, I wonder if there was a way that organizations could train specialty teachers to go into centers and work with children with these behavior issues, and not just like speech therapists or occupational therapists or people like that, but actual teachers who go in and spend the day and spend time with those children, which in turn gives the children, they're specially trained for this, so it gives the children more of what they need, but it also causes a lot less stress and burnout on the teachers. What would your thought to something like that be?
If it's something that helps the kids, like, definitely, like, I'm for anything that may be able to help those babies because they need it. And like we talked about earlier, they just got so much energy balled up. Give them like a little class, like, instead of just recess outside, have like a planned activity. Have a company come in that's going to give them, oh, let's go play basketball, let's go play soccer, let's go do gymnastics. Give them something else. I was going to get that energy out because they're just balled up and they're in a classroom all day trapped away. Give them that space.
Definitely keeping them engaged as well. Yes. Well, you know, we could talk a whole lot about, you know, kids going wild and the things that, you know, childcare teachers are needing to deal with in the early learning centers. We're actually going to get close to wrapping up this segment, but I wanted to ask if you had any advice for the teachers out there. What would that be?
Don't give up on the babies. They can't help it. Push through. Talk to someone else if you need it. But do not give up on those kids. They can't help it. They're little babies. Just try to help those babies out. That's all I can say.
I think most of the teachers' frustration is not with the children, it'd be with the parents.
Yeah. At that point, try to communicate, and then if you can't get nowhere, go to your director. Find your support. And then, yeah, like you said, document everything. And just hopefully you have a support team.
So building a support team is going to be very key in dealing with behavior issues, but also making sure that you are able to withstand while you deal with children with behavior issues. It sounds like you have found a way to build that support and to work with behavior issues and challenging children in your classrooms. I appreciate the fact that you communicate with the parents and you want to be a support to them and the children. And it speaks volumes to how much you care about your role in this industry.
yeah,
We
most
definitely
definitely.
need more teachers like you.
Oh, thank you.
That's no
I
problem.
try.
Julie, I really appreciate you sitting here and talking with me today on the Childcare Teacher Chronicles podcast. We are going to wrap up this episode. You can catch us on all the streaming platforms. Make sure you remember to like, comment, and subscribe. If you have anything you want to know about or hear about, make sure you reach out to Coach Stacey B. And as always, we will be talking to you later. Bye-bye.